Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. On today's show, it's all about the deal. No, I did not read through all 130 pages of it. If you've listened to the show and watched this show, you know I can't do that. But other people did, and I will give you the highlights of the deal and what's going to happen in 2022, what we have to look forward to in 2023 and beyond. All next on Locked On Yankees.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, Yankee fans. It is Friday, March 11th. It's 3/11 day. And no, I can't play any of their music because copyright will not allow me. It's a good day in baseball land. We have baseball to look forward to beginning next week, I believe, right around St. Patrick's Day. So thank goodness. Guys are already showing up to camp and hitting home runs and doing things, and that's a fun thing to watch. I will say, when I logged into YouTube this morning and I saw all of the Yes Network videos pop up with updates about baseball being back, I was jazzed. I was very excited. Speaking of YouTube, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube. You can like and comment on every video. You can listen to us in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. And when you get into your car, you can tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Yankees. So here we are. A deal has been made, and thank goodness for Jason Stark because he went through the whole thing. He even joked on Twitter. He said, "New from me. I'm guessing you won't feel like reading all 130 pages of the new labor deal, so I took a look at the highlights and asked, how will that work? And will it work? You're welcome." Seriously, though, thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. So we're going to scroll through this and look at some of the stuff. So they are playing all 162 games. They only canceled 2 series, so there is a way to do it. There will be doubleheaders, and they won't be 7-inning doubleheaders. I didn't mind the 7-inning doubleheader, especially if the Yankees ended up winning both games. But if they didn't, then I didn't like them. I mean, typical. I also did not like the runner on second, which is also gone. The runner on second in extra innings. So happy. I nearly ran around this house in celebration of that rule being gone. I wouldn't have minded, and I said this yesterday, if the runner on second kicked in around the 12th inning. The 10th was too soon. It was too soon. It was ridiculous. So anyway, I mean, you did see teams like the Yankees screw it up. Silly things would happen. I think Shohei Ohtani got caught wandering off second base. They had him as the ghost runner. It was like one of the first times the Angels had to do it during the COVID season, I believe. And it was just it was funny. But no, I couldn't stand that rule. I'm so happy about that. But back to the 162. So they're going to be able to play 162. Players don't have to worry about not being paid for games that were missed. So I guess Rob Manfred lied to us, or lied to everyone else. Speaking of Rob Manfred, I've been so engrossed in this labor dispute and keeping track of everything on Twitter and everything else that I had a dream last night that, one, I was at a friend's apartment. Don't know whose apartment it was because it didn't look familiar to me. I don't know who the friend was either. I was assuming I was in a friend's apartment. Rob Manfred came into that apartment wearing a hat, t-shirt, jeans, and like a windbreaker, and said something to the effect of, "Sorry you don't like me." And then I had to apologize for all the things I've said about him on Twitter. What kind of a dream is that? What is Rob Manfred doing to me? What's baseball doing to me? This is all insane. So anyway, I just thought that was really funny. I woke up and thought, why? So all 162, yay, thank goodness. So what they might do, or what they will do, play the full 162, add 1 3-game series to the back end of the season. Cram in the remaining games somewhere along the way through mutual off days, double headers, and then he said other magic tricks, expand the playoffs, but they're not going to change the dates of the World Series. by playing the postseason in a tighter window. So, yes, it'll work. With the season no longer ending on a Sunday this year, that also gives us potentially, oh, that's true, an epic finale of the regular season in primetime and on a non-NFL weeknight. That's good. Because, well, I mean, everyone was watching the last series against the Rays because it took the Yankees so long to secure their spot in the wild card game that they lost. But, a lot of people were watching that even though it was a Sunday afternoon. But yeah, it is better for them to not compete with football. We'll talk about that in a second too, because there's other stuff they're going to be competing with football with, and it's not good. So let's see what else. Okay, so 12 teams in the playoffs. I don't know. I don't know if I like that. Oh, they're also getting rid of the 163, game 163. I say this all the time. I love the wild card game. I love game 163 when the Yankees are not involved. Now, obviously, the Yankees had big moments in the Bucky Dent game. That was technically a 163, but yeah, I enjoy watching those games when other teams are involved, and my friends from other fandoms are the ones who are panicking and anxious, and I just laugh and watch them be panicky and anxious because how many years were we all panicky and anxious watching the Yankees in the playoffs in the 90s? I mean, yes, it was fun watching them win, but it was pretty anxiety-inducing to go through every round of the playoffs until they won those World Series. And even when they didn't win, 97 was not fun. And 2001, that was just an emotional roller coaster. So, yeah. I don't know how to feel about that. Because the 163 is really fun. And yes, sometimes those games, actually, they don't compete with football. Because a lot of the times, they played them earlier. So it wouldn't it wouldn't compete with Monday Night Football. Because usually it's the day after the season ends. But now this season's not ending on a Sunday if they're tacking on an extra series. So why wouldn't you have a possible 163? I don't like that. Let me know below in the comments on YouTube and tweet at Locked On Yankees. Let me know how you feel about the elimination of 163. I don't like it. So the wild card round, this is how it's going to work. First place teams with two best records in each league get a bye. The remaining division winner, plus the wild card with the best record, will host a best-of-3 series, and all 3 games are at the site of the top seed. So despite all the talk of ghost wins to give division winners a greater advantage, they're not part of this format, because that was a thing that was being talked about during negotiations. And it says, let's see, there's still a chance that you could see a team with a losing record in the playoffs, but it's not as big of a chance with a 12-team field as it would have been with a 14-team field, which that makes sense. So it's possible you still could see it because there are times when one league is stronger than the other. Some divisions are stronger than others. We see it all the time, actually, but it's possible. You might see a wild card team sneak in there just under 500. You never know. I think it would be good. I think that could be fun, actually. Fun and annoying to anyone who roots for the team who loses to the team under 500 in the wild card round. That would annoy a lot of people. Hopefully it won't be the Yankees. Hopefully I just didn't jinx the Yankees into a wild card loss. Yikes. But with a 12-team playoff field, it almost feels like the Yankees are never not going to be in the playoffs because they never do a full reset. The worst that they've done in the last, how many years? 25 years? How many over 500 years have they had now? We're closing in on 30, actually. But the worst record that they've had, I think they had like 83 wins, 84 wins, something like that. So they're never so terrible. You see the Red Sox completely reset and then they win the World Series. Maybe the Yankees should do the same thing. No, Yankee fans couldn't handle that. They definitely couldn't handle that. No offense to most of you out there, but you know you couldn't. You know what you could handle? A Built Bar Puff. Nice segue. Have you tried them? I talk about them all the time, but you really need to try them because if you haven't, you're missing out on Built Bar's, one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. And the flavors, churro. Churros are so good, and it's like eating a churro covered in chocolate. It's so good. Coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. These are going to be your new favorite thing. All Built Bars, not just the puffs, are covered in 100% chocolate. They're low calorie, high protein. You can replace your candy bars with these things because they taste just as good as a candy bar. If you go to Built.com and you scroll down to the macros chart, you'll be blown away by the stats of these things. Flavors, talk about it all the time. Mint brownie, coconut almond tastes like Almond Joy and Mounds mixed together. So good. They're all delicious. New flavors are coming out all the time. And if Built thinks that a flavor might be good, they'll make it for you, or they'll make it overall. It'll be delicious and it'll be good for you. And at Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, and then they figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how they do that, but they pull it off every time. So go to Built.com, use our promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Again, LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. Locked On MLB Prospects is hosted by Lindsey Crosby, who's a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It is free and available wherever you get podcasts. I enjoy talking to Lindsey. I've had him on the show, and he does know his stuff. He's really good. And if you've watched on YouTube, I love the background that he has. I love the paint color in that room that he films in, and I need to ask him what that color is because I think I might have to do that in my room. So let's get back to the deal and what is going on with all of this stuff. Now, how do we feel about, we touched upon the wild card round. How do we feel about the 3 games being at the higher seeds home park? Hey, if the Yankees are the higher seed, I don't mind that all 3 games are in Yankee Stadium, but if they're the wild card and they're stuck playing like Houston, that's not fun. But I understand they're making it more difficult for the wild card team to make it into the later rounds. We've seen wild card teams go all the way, and that's part of the playoffs. You know, Brian Cashman says it a lot, and it is kind of true. No matter what you do in 162, you start at 0 in the playoffs because you see it all the time. You see teams that steamroll through 162 and then get ousted in the first round. We've seen the Yankees have that happen a few times in the 2000s. We saw it with Cleveland in 2017. The Yankees were the ones doing the ousting, but people were really excited about that Cleveland team, and they were really good. And they made the Yankees look really bad at the end of August in 2017. I was at a doubleheader, and Yankees both lost both games. There we go. I got the sentence out. And when the Yankees went down 2-0 in that series, who thought that they were going to come back? You're lying if you did. That 2017 was so much fun. It's such BS what happened to them. Anyway, let's get back into this, because if I go off on a tangent about what happened in 2017, I will never stop. Now, I'm not going to get into the service time thing because that is very complicated for me to understand. Let me just make sure, because I don't want to misspeak. But basically, they're going to try and avoid what the Cubs did to Chris Bryant that was 2015, right? You know, a lot of teams were doing service time manipulation, and, you know, the players were trying to get them to stop doing that because it was BS. It's not nice what they were doing to the young guys. So let's just see how. Oh, right. Okay. There's going to be a lottery pool. I don't know if I like that. I don't know. The owner's first proposal was a 3-team lottery. The union's initial response was 8 teams. They settled on 6. So there's going to be a 6-team lottery. Interesting. A big market team, one that pays into the revenue sharing pool, can't get a lottery pick more than one season in a row. A small market club, one that receives money from the revenue sharing pool, can't be part of the lottery more than 2 years in a row. The highest those teams can pick once they're bounced out of the pool is 10th. Interesting. So the draft won't be the same because of that. That's interesting. But I don't believe in that whole big market, small market thing, because all these guys have money. If you look at how much everyone's worth, I mean, obviously the guy who is the most is Steve Cohen, and he dwarfs everyone. I saw a list of what all the owners are worth, and I think the owner of the Rays and who was the other one? They were just below $1 billion, but still way up there. And then the Yankees were worth, was it 3.2 or 3.8? It was somewhere. I think it was 3.8. And then Steve Cohen was like 220 billion. It's like something really ludicrous. That's a lot of money. Abby and I spoke about this on the show so many times, but the difference between millions and billions is a lot. My stomach is actually flipping right now thinking about the difference between millions and billions. Thinking about the difference between, the most I ever made in my life yearly was $46,000 at NBC. I think that's what I made my last year at NBC. And thinking about people who, $46,000 is nothing to a billionaire. That's chump change. That's like a tip. They would tip someone $46,000. And just the amount of money that these guys have. So I don't know. I feel like some of these owners get away with being cheap. A lot of them get away with being cheap. I've said it so many times. I feel bad for Pittsburgh Pirate fans. They deserve a better team. They deserve it to be run better. They deserve for the team not to be the minor leagues of other teams and trade all their players away and make deals and stuff and be like, they're like a stop on the way to the guy's superstardom. And it shouldn't be that way. It was fun watching the Pirates be good in, when was that, 2012, 2013? And then they just fell off a cliff again. And I don't know, I feel like more teams should be competitive in baseball. It would make it a lot more fun. Right? I don't know. I think it's ridiculous. And then finally, wow. Apparently Vlad Guerrero Jr., I'd said that very oddly, didn't I? Vlad Guerrero Jr. was worth $53.5 million to the Blue Jays last year, and that's according to Fangraph's valuation formula. His actual salary, oh my God, is $605,400. $605,400. Do the math in your head. He was underpaid by nearly $53 million. I mean, obviously, he's still young. He'll get paid. If he keeps playing the way he's playing, he's going to have a very large payday. He is amazing. But that is just when people talk about how much players make and what they're worth, go to Fangraphs and use that tool. And then you'll think to yourself, all right, maybe I was way off, because so many people, they're not worth this much, and, players shouldn't be making this much, and this is ridiculous. Is it? No. It's not ridiculous paying these guys millions of dollars. It's ridiculous paying guys who are clearly way more than they're getting, or worth way more than they're getting. That's just, the discrepancy there is insane. It shouldn't be that way. All right. Have you guys been watching basketball this week? Because I saw 2 buzzer beaters. Hi, two. What's my hand doing? 2. Virginia Tech, and was it Miami? Miami. And Miami's was, usually when you watch buzzer beaters in basketball, it's, a 3-pointer or a half-court shot. This guy just drove to the basket and hit a layup with like 0.2 of a second left, and they won the game. What was the other team doing on defense? I don't understand. It was so odd. But if you want to bet on college basketball, it's that time of year again, because all the tournaments are upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. So if you want to bet on any of those college basketball games, BetOnline. Go there. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now let's get back to the rule about the ghost runner not being there, because as I said at the top, I am so excited that rule is done, because the Yankees just could not handle that rule. They won a few times, but there were a lot of games that they screwed up, and I hated that rule with the power of 10,000 suns, and I'm glad to see it go. Now, the other thing that they were talking about for the future, and as I said in the tease, some of this stuff has to do with this season and beyond. They are discussing the possibility of balancing the schedule, which I am all for it. Bring it on. I would love to see the Yankees play the Marlins and the Rockies and teams that you don't see them play. And I would love for them to not play the Red Sox 19 times a year. Those days are done. They're done. Let's just play everyone. There's a universal DH. So it's not like the leagues are different anymore. So just blend it all together. My brother will be so happy about this. He made a plan for this in 2004. He wrote to the Daily News and they published his letter. And I'm sure he's very excited about this. I haven't been able to talk to him about it. But yes, bring it on. I'm so happy about this. And speaking of the Red Sox, because the season is starting April 7th, the Yankees open at home against the Red Sox. So, hey, opening day after losing the wild card game to them should be interesting. It'll be interesting if the Yankees go into opening day without doing much of anything before the season starts. They have needs, they'll fill them, but it's just going to be interesting to see how they fill them. And speaking of that, the free agency frenzy that everyone expected has not happened yet. And Jerry DiPoto had a press conference earlier today of the Mariners, and he said that he basically said, yeah, it's not going to be, I know everyone thought that it was going to be a frenzy, but it's not going to be. It feels normal. He says things are going to be a little slow. So you're not going to see a flurry of moves. That's kind of disappointing. I mean, not that I don't think we all expected the deal to be made and then an hour later, announcing signings, because it's not like they could really do anything during the lockout without being accused of tampering, right? Like that would be bad. So I don't know. Hopefully something will happen over the weekend and we'll have some good things to discuss. Although Jack Curry on Yes said that it's more than likely that the Yankees will sign a stopgap shortstop and then, do the whole bringing Volpe up. But he's still so young. So I guess the stopgap shortstop will be around for maybe 1 or 2 years. I don't know. You're the Yankees. Go for it. What are you doing? You're wasting Aaron Judge right now. And speaking of Aaron Judge, sign Aaron Judge. Sign him to whatever the hell he wants. Keep him a lifelong Yankee. If you don't, what is wrong with you? Oh, speaking of Judge and speaking of baseball being back, and I found this very interesting. MLB on Fox posted a picture on their Instagram account. I'm going to pull it up because I want to make sure that I have everyone correct in the picture, because I found something very interesting about the picture. Let me see. Judge is in it, obviously, because he's one of the biggest players, both in stature and in the way he plays. But there was a person absent from that picture. There it is. If you're on YouTube, I'm showing it to you. If you're on sound, I'm sorry. I will describe the picture to you. Shohei Ohtani is prominently featured. He's the top dude, and it's basically like a pyramid of guys. And Tatis Jr. and is that Vlad Jr.? Yes. And let's see, Bryce Harper, Jacob deGrom, Altuve, Mookie Betts, Acuna. Who is that from the Brewers? Is that Hader? I'm not sure who that is. But there's a whole bunch of people. Who's missing? Who did I not name there? I understand that they probably don't want to put two guys from the same team. But where's Mike Trout? I found that interesting. I know he was injured last year. He missed a lot of last year, but I mean, it's Mike Trout. And that just shows you how badly baseball's doing with marketing their best players. And how badly the Angels are doing blowing his prime by not making the playoffs, because I don't think they will make it with the 12 team. If they had expanded it to 14, it's a possibility you could have seen the Angels in the playoffs at some point, but they're wasting him. I mean, at least the Yankees have made the playoffs. Judge has made it to 2 ALCSs. He made it to the ALCS in his second season. And let's see, they've made it to the playoffs every year except 2016, right? So they're not completely wasting Aaron Judge, but they're kind of wasting him. And they need to do something about that. Like sign Carlos Correa. Or Freddie Freeman is a name that's being thrown around. I would love to have Freddie Freeman. Imagine Freddie Freeman hitting home runs in Yankee Stadium. Just picture it. That would be amazing. And I don't want to hear people say, oh, well, they're probably not going to sign Correa because he's a righty. Who cares? He's Carlos Correa. He improves the defense a lot. Doesn't matter what side of the plate he bats from. I heard or read that the price for Matt Olson seems to be too high. The A's are asking for too much. They're probably asking for Volpe. No. Matt Olson's good, but he's not that good. Okay? No. The Yankees aren't going to get rid of like their top prospect or one of their top prospects for Matt Olson, no matter how good looking he is. That's a joke. Jason Burke of Locked On A's, and I did a crossover in, was that August? Talking about possible Matt Olson scenarios, and we were joking about how good looking he was. We couldn't help ourselves. It was funny. So, Yankees open up against Boston, April 7th. Can't escape it. Oh well. 12 teams in the playoffs, wild card round, 3 games at the higher seeds, home ballpark. Makes sense. They want to make it more difficult for the wild card to get in. All 162 are going to be played. They're just going to have to figure out how to make up those 7 games, right? Because I think it was 7 games that were canceled, first 2 series. But baseball's back, people. Yay. And speaking of that, we are going to go to 5 days a week, starting the week of March 20th. Next week will still be not as many episodes, but you never know. I mean, if something happens and I need to do an emergency podcast and Abby will be back from the Bahamas, so we might have more time to do things, then it's going to be more than 3. But we go back to 5 a week, starting March 20th. Yay. We should have done it a month ago, but we're doing it. And I'm very excited that baseball is back, and it's going to be a fun year. And we have fun things to look back on. We have some not so fun things to look back on because, years that end in 7-2s weren't that great for the Yankees. 77 was good. We can talk about 45 years ago because they won a World Series then. But in recent years that end in 7s and 2s. Yeah, we might have some tough games to recall, but we'll do it anyway because we like doing that on this show. It's Friday, everyone. It's supposed to snow in the New York area, so if you're in the New York area, please be careful and, hunker down, get all the food you need, and then, hang out in your house tomorrow with your family. So next week, if something happens with the Yankees, if a signing happens out of nowhere, we will do an emergency podcast. But for now, that's it for this episode of Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'd like to remind you that you can listen to this show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can watch and subscribe to us on YouTube. And when you get into your car, you can tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On MLB. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues, both past and present. And it's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. One more thing, if you could be so kind, please rate the podcast and spread the word about this podcast to your fellow Yankee fans. We would really appreciate it. So enjoy your weekend. And again, if something big happens, we'll do a show about it.